Talk a little bit about the mechanisms that you have in place and perhaps the evolution of those mechanisms for community input into your strategy, into your the grant making, into kind of really your relationships across sectors, and tell us a little bit about what you feel has worked well, what you feel really proud of.
Absolutely. Good morning. I want to play off what Brenda said about having staff that's in the community, being visible in the community, and take that one step further and urge you to hire staff that's from the community, that knows your community. There's no better way for a foundation, a new foundation, to gain credibility. And there's no worse way than to start with an all-new, brand-new slate of people that no one knows, no one has seen, and you're being asked to trust, because trust doesn't happen overnight. So I think having people that the community knows and trusts in your foundation is a great first step. The other thing that we've done is we've gone outside of our own walls. We recognize that our foundation building and our boardroom is not always a comfortable place for community to sit physically. So we hold our board meetings on our Public Housing Authority in their conference room. We go out into communities. We're visible. We wear jeans, not a big deal, sort of a big deal. We talk with people, we know people. We try very hard to minimize the us and them, the doing for. We hire staff who live in communities, who experience the issues that we feel like are important to us. One of the things we say internally a lot is the closer you are to the pain, the closer you are to the solution. And so we try to build that. We try to build the capacity for individual community members to be in our offices, in our space, and for us to be in their space. And we really do see ourselves as the community. We're not there for the community. We are the community. And that goes for board, for staff, for partners. And I really was struck by this circle of trust, and it's a little bit off topic, but I do want to say this. Fantastic graphic. I'd also urge you to think about the communities that you work with. They have their own circle of trust, and you are not at the center of it. And it's your job to maintain that trust as well. You're one part of their work, and that, I think, decentering philanthropy, and that's very hard to do when you're looking, at $1.5 billion, but decentering the role of philanthropy in social change. It's one necessary and catalyst part of change, but it really is outside you're a link in someone else's chain. And so I think kind of taking that lens and seeing yourself in that role is key to starting that process.
Oftentimes, philanthropy can sort of be overly proud of itself, and that they feel like they have all the answers and, everybody else needs to listen. But the reality is that we're in the business to change lives for the better, and grant making is a tool that we use in order to do that. And so in South Carolina, there's a lot of difference between urban and rural. If you go to Charleston, you're going to have one experience, and if you go to Allendale, you're going to have another experience. So I think you have to be mindful of what your communities look like, and the voices of your communities are important. We experienced early on kind of what I call the umbrella syndrome, where you might go into a community that's rural and the elected officials or others may say, well, let me speak for this community. Nobody else really, you don't really need to talk to anybody else. I can speak for the community. We fell for that a couple of times, but you have to reach beyond the perceived leadership and talk to people that are on the ground. Not only people providing the services, but people receiving services. Because the worst thing we can do is be prescriptive. We don't want to go into communities and tell them what they need to do to make things better. We have to go into communities with an open mind and be willing to be good listeners, because nobody's going to tell you anything better and more important about that community than the people that are getting up every morning and living there and working there and are challenged by that. So I think hearing the voice of our communities is essential. You certainly need data and research to tell you a lot of things. but you'll never be successful in a community unless you have buy-in or you have their voice heard. Otherwise, it's a disconnect.
Brenda, you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I would add is that I think a lot of funders say that we listen to community, that we're trust building, that we're, going and being there and, all the things that are politically correct that foundations like to believe. And I continue to ask the question about the power infrastructure that that the foundations have built and make communities go through. And that's the question that I keep asking my colleagues is, what are you doing to change the power infrastructure? And especially in rural America, the only way we're going to get resources out to those communities is to break those power dynamics and to make it as simple and as easy as we can to let them do the work.